Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for hanging out with us here on the Daily Racing Forum YouTube. I'm Gino Buccola alongside Mike Beer with producer Bobby pulling the strings behind the scenes. We have the Sunday Race of the Day preview coming up for you, but we want to remind you first that the Kentucky Derby packages are now available. Derby Day is coming soon, so you can get the Derby package and play with confidence. Save up to 39% on expert picks, data, and betting strategies. Head to shop.drf.com. Get ready to win big. A lot of the times when you're reading those betting strategies, it's the man Mike Beer who's sitting next to me now previewing this race, the Sunday Race of the Day. Remember, you can get free past performances for the Sunday Race of the Day at drf.com. Mike, I thought this was an intriguing race because you have two horses who showed a lot of talent last year on the turf, but they're making their first start of the year in Endlessly and in King of Gossford. So those are kind of horses that I think may have the most talent at the end of the year, but will they be ready to fire their best shot here? You have a few horses who came off of a really good effort last time out in Zoe Joe and Cabo Spirit, like career best effort almost for those horses where they were second and third in the grade one hill row. So horses that are intriguing, couple coming off big performances. Then you have a few that are coming, kind of starting their season here, and they'll meet in this American.
Yeah, some of the other ones have a lot more to prove, it seems like. But you're right. You have the two newly turned 4-year-olds who are, I would call them maybe the most interesting horses in the race, the 4 and the 6.
Yep.
But listen, the natural starting off point, I think, kind of has to be Zoe Joe and Cabo Spirit, who were just, less than a length away in a grade one in their most recent start.
Let's see what the pace projector thinks as far as the way this race could shape up. Cabo Spirit's usually up front. That's where he's done his best work. Every now and then he'll find a field where there's not that much speed and he can steal a race. And last time out, he ran well cutting back. He's been better going a little longer, Mike, where he can kind of slow things down up front. But on the cutback, he was pretty game last time out. And probably the reason why Zoe Joe didn't win that race, we'll show you the backtrack a little bit, but because he couldn't really get by Cabo Spirit and he was a nuisance getting by.
Yeah, exactly. I won't disagree too much with the pace projector because that Cabo Spirit's running style, particularly in his most recent starts, and I know some of those are going longer, but he's just been a forward horse, and he did run really well in the Kill Row last time. So we'll see if he can back it up. Maybe the other key to the pace here, because I do think the 6 King of Gossford, I think he's more tactical, more handy. Phosphorescence, this might be a little bit too tough for him. He's a really good gate horse. Yep. And he's got good, sort of natural speed. I wonder how aggressive they'll get with him.
And he's at least going to be in here to try to maybe help things for his stablemate Endlessly. Yeah. Both of those horses will be best running in their styles on the lead and coming from behind, but it'll also help just to make sure that maybe Cabo Spirit doesn't get loose on the front end. As we talked about that race, the Kill Row, we can kind of head on out there right now because as we meet the field, we have a replay for Zoe Joe that we can talk about. And Mike, I don't want to watch this one because I played Zoe Joe this day and he was sitting so perfect. Like when you play a long shot like this is the exact trip you're hoping for. He got the jump on some of the deeper closers, and then Formidable Man is able to sneak through with a great ride from Rispoli down on the inside. But Zoe Joe just really couldn't put Cabo Spirit away, and that's probably why he wasn't able to win the race there. He sat a perfect trip just behind him. That was sort of his big performance, a career best effort. So what do we do with him now coming back off of that effort? He could sit a pretty nice trip down on the inside, saving ground.
Exactly. You just have to take his chances really, really seriously in here because he's in excellent form. He ended 2024 in the best form of his career. You go back to that Seabiscuit. And I know that it was a contested pace in front of him there. He had something to run at, but boy, did he have real trouble in that race.
Yep.
And then he's just come back with 2 really nice starts so far this year, including that last one. And your point's well taken. Gino, Cabo Spirit is a real hard hitter, and he's not just going to let you stroll by him in the stretch. You had to work really hard in that race. That was a very tough beat, particularly for you. If you bet this horse at 23-1, that's a brutal beat.
Yeah, that was a rough one. Had him in the Maltese and stuff too. Now he goes third off the layoff, but like you said, he's just in good form. He fits really well with this group. We move to Phosphorescence. He's probably the key to the race, Mike, as far as how it's going to shape up because he has some speed, but he can also sit off the pace. He's an interesting horse because I think he was highly regarded early on in his career. You saw him in stakes races and they put him in a few different spots. And then he's now won 3 of his last 5 races. I love the way he was able to sit last time out behind horses. That's the key. Can he sit just off of Cabo Spirit, maybe get the jump on some of the others? If so, you go back to some of his better races. if he were to just continue to improve off that, it wouldn't be too far away from this group. Like, this is an interesting group. I think it's competitive. It doesn't feel like there are any real monsters that scare you. And maybe the horses that are the ones with the highest ceiling are coming off the bench. So I actually think he might be able to run pretty well here, sneaky, if he's not just in here to set it up for endlessly, if he's in here to really kind of sit and run well for himself.
Yeah, I was worried that he might just be in here to make sure this pace goes, because again, he's not only is he really good when he does make the lead, doesn't need the lead, but he's really good when he makes the lead. But he's so good from the gate. Even that most recent start that you were referencing there, just off a little bit of a layoff. I mean, he had the lead first time through the stretch in there.
Yep.
They just didn't want it. They raided him into the pocket there. It almost blew up in Pratt's face a little bit there. He had to alter course.
Yep.
Backed out of the inside. But listen, give him credit for overcoming it, a little bit. I didn't think it was like horrible trouble, but a little bit of trouble to get the job done there. Gino, the more I looked at him, again, I'm not sure if he's not just in here to provide some pace, but I think it's pretty clear that he's going to need to run the race of his life if he's going to beat all these horses.
That's the key, right? Could he hit the board? Could he beat a few of them? Yeah. And just make sure if you play him, you get rewarded with the price that you're looking for, right? Because he should be a price in here, and probably a fun price if you want to take a swing, but make sure it's there. Cabo Spirit is a multiple graded stakes winner. You just know what you're going to get from him, Mike. He's a pace factor, and he ran well at a mile last time out.
He really did. It's interesting because I always felt like he was better going shorter. They, tried to make him sort of a longer distance horse last year. I feel like just because he hadn't won a race in a long time, and maybe they were worried that his form was tailing off, so they stretched him out. It kind of worked. He got the grade 2 win in the John Henry going 1.25 miles when they just let him walk on the lead that day. And then he just got in some spots that were way too tough for him. I don't know. He's a really good horse. He ran really well last time. He's a major contender in here. I would just wait and see what kind of price he goes off at, because at this stage of his career, he doesn't win that often anymore.
Endlessly has not raced since July of 2024 when he was 5th in the Grade 1 Belmont Derby. If you look at his turf and synthetic form overall, though, he's 5 for 7. He's a multiple Grade 3 winner. He ran in the Kentucky Derby when he, basically split the field there behind Mystic Dan. But this is a starting point for him, Mike. And another thing about him, too, he just doesn't have a whole lot of early speed. He comes from way, way out of it. So he probably needs a setup and a little bit of help up front. What do we do with Endlessly making his first start in 9-10 months now?
Yeah, he's the most interesting horse in the race. Obviously, they're doing the right thing here, starting him back as a turf horse, as a 4-year-old. This is his surface. I at least always want to be lenient on connections who have a really talented 3-year-old. And so they want to run him in the Derby just to see what happens. That was the case with Endlessly. I think everybody kind of knew he wasn't a dirt horse, but they tried it. It didn't work out in the Derby. He only made one start after that, the Belmont Derby, which was one of those races that was slow early and fast late, and he was last in there. I mean, he didn't run great in there, but maybe he had an excuse. He's the most interesting horse in the race, in my opinion, Gino. I still think he has a chance to be really, really good. We'll see if he needs one off the bench.
Bellator is a horse who I played on the dirt last time out, and I really wanted to build a case for him, Mike, because I think when you look at his turf form first glance, a lot of people might just go past it. When you dig into it, it's not that bad. Even like his speed figures, he has a couple pretty good races too. He has a 3rd in the 23 San Francisco Mile, a 5th in a pretty strong 2024 San Francisco Mile, and he was 4th in the Grade 1 Shoemaker Mile when he wasn't beat a whole lot in those races. He still would need to improve a bit. I could see him kind of sitting an okay trip and being one of those horses who could hit the board and maybe get a nice slice at a pricing here. I wanted to make more of a case for him than I was able to here. Could you?
No, I couldn't. I'm with you. He's not my kind of horse, but you're totally correct in pointing out that even though he's a maiden on turf, it doesn't mean that he doesn't handle the surface. I think to me, the most interesting thing about him, Gino, is after those 2 races that you mentioned back in 2023, the San Francisco Mile, the Shoemaker Mile, he runs really well in those races, competitive. He's run on turf twice since then. Like, what are they doing? Running this horse on dirt most of the time? I don't know.
Yeah, I agree. Go back and give it another try. We moved to King of Gossford. He got really good last year. And then honestly, you start to dig into his form overall. He's only run one bad race since he came to the US, and it wasn't even a bad race. He had legitimate trouble that day. It's just the race that he didn't hit the board. He's been 8 for 9 in the money. Last year, he had a couple of stakes wins, a grade 2 win, was grade 1 placed, loves Santa Anita. He's pretty versatile. You start going through his form. He beat horse like Raging Torrent, who's now become really good. So I think this horse has some real ability, Mike, and some super versatility to him.
I agree. I just think he's good. He's still got even more room to improve, and he's got the right running style for this race, where he doesn't need the lead, but he'll be right up close if they're going slow, and if they're going a little faster, he's just going to be handy enough to find a trip. I'm glad you pointed out the only time he missed the board there in that Oceanside. He just had a brutal trip in that race. Listen, this horse is good. I really liked his win the last time we saw him too. I know he sort of had all the best of it there, just making the lead, but they tried him a couple of different times in that race on the lead, and he was never letting those horses get by him.
And he deserved a race like that with all the trouble that he's had in a few different races, right? One race where he could just kind of get out front and kind of cruise. We ran out the field with St. Anthony. He's a multiple stakes winner. He's going to stretch back out from 6.5 now to go longer, but he just hasn't really run well since that Oceanport win at Monmouth. His last 5 or 6 races in a row just don't seem like they would be competitive against this type of a group.
I agree. I mean, I think he kind of is what he is. He's not a bad horse.
No.
I do think there's a scenario here where he shows up and fires his best shot and he can get a piece of this thing, because he's not a bad horse at all. I don't think he's like totally over his head here. And he's going to be one of the longest shots on the board. I don't think I'd bet him to win.
And you can kind of talk yourself into a lot of these horses maybe trying to show positional speed, right? We know Phosphorescence, Cabo Spirit want to be close. Maybe King of Gossford's a little bit fresh off the bench. Bellator, right? Maybe in this smaller field, all these horses start jockeying for position. Then this would be one of the horses that would benefit sitting back, making one late run. And Hernandez jumps aboard too. So that has to be looked at as a positive. But Mike, I think you and I, in kind of talking it out, sort of felt like King of Gossford is the horse to beat in here, right? I got a little creative and maybe could get some value if Phosphorescence could get a trip and maybe get the jump on him. But I really do think that King of Gossford was the horse to beat. How did you stack him up with selections?
Yeah, I did think he was. Listen, I just sort of decided to side with the two newly turned 4-year-olds, and I couldn't quite get to endlessly. I'm hoping that he runs really well here. I want that horse's career to pan out for him, because he looked really good early on. I don't want to bet him here necessarily. I will take King of Gossford on top. Listen, Zoe Joe, Cabo Spirit. There are 2 horses you have to really reckon with in here, but I think I'll take a shot against them.
Yeah, we have 3 of the same 4 horses here, just in a slightly different order. I'll throw a price in of Phosphorescence. You use Cabo Spirit. So we're both using one of the pace horses there as well. But the key is for you. However you're going to play them, we wish you the best of luck in the Sunday race of the day.